Ptolemy the 13th. January 13th, 47 BC, the Nile, 30 pounds of gold. That's how much his armor weighed. It took less than 60 seconds for it to drag a 14-year-old pharaoh to the bottom of the Nile. He was conscious for every single one of them. The breastplate meant to stop enemy swords became the anchor that drowned him. This is how ancient Egypt killed its own. But here's what makes ancient Egypt deaths truly horrifying. How long victims remained aware. We've created a scale. Level 0 is instant death. No awareness, no suffering. Level 7 is years of conscious agony, knowing you're dying, unable to stop it. Every case you're about to see falls somewhere on this spectrum. And the numbers? The numbers are worse than you think. Case 1. PENTAWER. The Screaming Mummy. PENTAWER. 1155. BC, Thebes. The prince who murdered his father. DNA analysis in 2012 confirmed his identity. Y haplogroup E1b1a, matching Ramesses III. The judicial papyrus of Turin recorded his crime. He had conspired to kill the pharaoh. His punishment was recorded as self-execution, forced suicide, strangulation. It takes only 11 pounds of pressure to cut off blood flow to the brain. PENTAWER would have lost consciousness within 10 to 60 seconds, but brain death takes 4 to 5 minutes, meaning his body continued to struggle long after his mind went dark. When embalmers found him, his mouth was frozen open in what looked like a scream. But physical death was only the beginning. They wrapped him in sheepskin, an animal considered ritually impure. His organs were left to rot inside him. In ancient Egypt, this wasn't just execution. It was spiritual annihilation. Without proper mummification, his soul could never enter the afterlife. He was condemned to wander between worlds for eternity. 3,000 years later, that scream is still there. PENTAWER's strangulation lasted only minutes. The next victim wasn't so lucky. He was awake for every blow. Case 2. SEQENENRE Ta II. The brutal execution. SEQENENRE Ta II. Approximately 1558 BC, the Theban front. A 2021 CT scan study published in Frontiers in Medicine revealed the truth about this pharaoh's death. His hands were bound behind his back. He was a prisoner. 5 different weapons struck his skull. A bronze axe leaving a 2.75-inch gash across his forehead. A blade carving a 1.25-inch slash above his right eye. A dagger thrust into the base of his skull. Cuts to his left cheek. A penetrating wound below his left ear. 5 attackers. 5 weapons. A ceremonial execution by Hyksos soldiers. For a pharaoh, considered a living god by his people, this was the ultimate humiliation. He remained conscious for approximately 10 to 60 minutes as each blow landed. The brain can stay aware even as the skull breaks apart around it. Blood loss and shock would have made him weak, but not unconscious. Not yet. His embalmers did what they could with what remained of his face, but the damage was too severe to hide. His mummy still shows the complete destruction, preserved as evidence of what happens when a god-king falls into enemy hands. SEQENENRE suffered for an hour at most. The next victim suffered for years, and never knew she was dying. Case 3. HATSHEPSUT. The Poisoned Lotion. HATSHEPSUT. January 16th, 1458 BC, Egypt. She ruled for 22 years, one of the most powerful female pharaohs in history. She commissioned grand temples, expanded trade routes, maintained peace throughout the kingdom, and she died without ever knowing what was killing her. In 2011, researchers at the University of Bonn analyzed a flask bearing her personal cartouche. Inside, a lotion containing benzopyrene, one of the most dangerous carcinogenic substances known to modern science. The same compound that makes cigarette smoke deadly. HATSHEPSUT had a chronic skin condition, eczema or psoriasis, a family trait passed down through her bloodline. The constant itching, the cracked bleeding skin, the inflammation that never stopped. Her royal physicians prescribed the finest medicine Egypt could offer. She applied this lotion daily to her damaged skin. Here's what her physicians didn't know. Benzopyrene absorbs 10 times faster through damaged tissue than through healthy skin. Every application, every day, for years. The lotion meant to heal became the poison that killed her. It corrupted her DNA, triggered uncontrolled cell growth. The bone cancer that eventually claimed her life may have been caused, or severely worsened, by her own medicine, year after year, dose after dose. Her physicians believed they were healing her. They were destroying her from within. She sought comfort. She found slow death. Hatshepsut's death was invisible, a slow betrayal she never understood. The next victim knew exactly what was killing him. He felt every centimeter. Case 4. AMENPANUFER. The Impalement AMENPANUFER. 1111 BC. Thebes. The papyrus Amherst recorded his crime, tomb robbery in the Valley of the Kings. He had broken into royal burial chambers, stripped gold from mummy wrappings, torn apart the preserved bodies of pharaohs to reach valuable amulets. In ancient Egypt, this wasn't just theft. It was the destruction of the afterlife itself, the worst crime imaginable. His punishment: public impalement on a wooden stake approximately 8 feet tall. Here's what most people don't understand about impalement. The stake was angled precisely to avoid vital organs. Not for mercy, for maximum suffering. Gravity did the rest. The stake advanced approximately 1 to 3 centimeters per hour through his intestines. The sequence: rectum, intestines, stomach, diaphragm. Each breath pushed him down further onto the stake. Each attempt to relieve pressure only accelerated the process. Dutch colonial records document victims surviving 6 to 8 days on the stake. AMENPANUFER likely lasted approximately 48 hours, conscious for most of it. Crowds gathered to watch. The sun beat down. Dehydration combined with internal bleeding. He died not from the stake itself, but from sepsis, dehydration, and slow organ perforation. His body was left on display afterward, a warning to anyone else who considered robbing the sacred dead. AMENPANUFER suffered for 48 hours, but at least he knew it was punishment. The next victim had no warning. One morning, Hunt destroyed everything. Case 5. TUTANKHAMUN. The Boy King's Fall. TUTANKHAMUN. 1324 BC. The Western Desert. It started as a morning hunt, the kind Tutankhamun had done dozens of times before. Egyptian chariots were light, fast, and unstable, built for speed, not safety. Drivers stood exposed on a small platform pulled by 2 horses across rough desert terrain. No restraints, no protection. By sunset, he had a death sentence growing inside his leg. CT scans revealed the truth: a compound fracture of his left leg. The bone had broken through his skin. Embalming resin was found directly inside the wound, proof that he died before the fracture could heal. In ancient Egypt, an open fracture meant one thing: infection. Day 1 to 2, the wound begins to fester. Day 5 to 7, the flesh around the wound turns black. Gangrene visible, fever rising. Day 7 to 14, delirium as sepsis reaches his brain. Day 14 to 21, death from septic shock. The chariot meant for glory became the instrument of his death. The boy king died in his bed at 18 years old, not from the crash itself, but from what grew in the wound afterward. Palace physicians could only watch as the rot advanced. They had no antibiotics, no way to stop the invisible enemy consuming him from within. 2 to 3 weeks of fever, delirium, and slow organ failure. All from one morning hunt. Tutankhamun had weeks to die. The next victim had less than 60 seconds. Case 6. Ptolemy the 13th, drowned in gold. You saw him at the start of this video. Now here's the full story. Ptolemy the 13th, January 13th, 47 BC, the Battle of the Nile. He was 14 years old, co-ruler of Egypt with his sister Cleopatra. When Julius Caesar's forces crushed his army, Ptolemy ran. He ran wearing full royal regalia. A heavy golden breastplate covered his chest. Decorative armor pieces adorned his arms and shoulders. Gold medallions marked his divine status as pharaoh. 30 pounds of solid gold and bronze. It made him instantly recognizable as royalty. It also made him a dead man. His boat capsized in the Nile. Bodies plunged into the water. Ptolemy hit the surface and sank immediately. The drowning timeline with 30 pounds of weight. First, 20 seconds. Fight or flight panic. Arms thrashing against the pull. 20 to 40 seconds. The involuntary breath hold breaking. Water entering his lungs. 40 to 60 seconds. Strength failing. The weight winning. Normal drowning victims can fight for 2 to 3 minutes. Ptolemy had less than 1. His fingers clawed at the straps of his breastplate. Panic made them clumsy. The buckles wouldn't come loose. His lungs burned. Water filled his mouth. The surface grew farther away. The armor meant to protect became the anchor that drowned him. 30 pounds of gold. The symbols of his divine power became the instrument of his death. Caesar's forces recovered his body later. They identified him immediately by the royal insignia he still wore. Ptolemy's death was fast, measured in seconds. The next victim's death took 2 weeks, and he caused it himself. Case 7. Cambyses. The second. Divine retribution. Cambyses II. 522 BC, Syria. 3 years earlier, this Persian king had done something unthinkable. He had conquered Egypt in 525 BC, and he showed open contempt for Egyptian religion. The Apis bull was the most sacred animal in all of Egypt, believed to be the living incarnation of the god Ptah. Only one Apis bull existed at any time, selected by specific markings and worshipped throughout its life. According to the historian Herodotus, Cambyses mocked this belief. He drew his dagger and deliberately stabbed the sacred bull in its thigh. Egyptian priests watched in horror. They warned him that divine retribution would follow. The bull died days later from the injury. Cambyses laughed at their predictions. 3 years passed. In 522 BC, Cambyses was in Syria, preparing to mount his horse for battle. He carried the same dagger at his side, secured in its scabbard. As he swung his leg over the horse, the scabbard broke loose. The exposed blade stabbed directly into his own thigh. Same weapon, same location. The wound seemed minor. He dismissed it. Day 1 to 2, a puncture wound. Trivial. Day 3 to 5, swelling, redness, pain increasing. Day 5 to 7, the flesh turns black. The smell of decay rises from living tissue. Day 7 to 10, fever, delirium, sepsis spreading through his bloodstream. Day 10 to 14, death from septic shock. Gas gangrene has a mortality rate approaching 100% without modern treatment. The king who mocked divine retribution died believing he had witnessed it. Same dagger, same thigh, 3 years apart. Cambyses was one man, one wound, one death. What you're about to see involved 318 people dying on the same day. Case 8. King DJER, the mass sacrifice. King DJER's funeral, approximately 2970 BC, Abydos. 318 subsidiary graves surrounded King DJER's tomb. Penn Museum excavations confirmed they were all sealed at the same time, within days of the king's death. This wasn't gradual burial over years. This was mass execution. Ancient Egyptian belief held that a king remained a king in the afterlife. He required his full court to serve him beyond death. Wives, concubines, servants, cupbearers, musicians, guards, all killed to accompany their pharaoh into eternity. Let me show you what this meant for one of them. A woman, the king's cupbearer. She had served him wine for 15 years. Her final 24 hours, she would have known. The rituals had been explained. When the king died, his household would follow. She watched others taken first, heard the sounds, smelled the incense meant to mask something else. Then it was her turn. Methods identified from skeletal analysis. Strangulation, marks found on vertebrae. Poison, some positioned as if sleeping. Burial alive. Some skeletons showed hands positioned as if clawing at stone. They had been conscious as the chamber sealed above them. Imagine it, darkness closing in, stone grinding into place, air running out. Knowing no one was coming, knowing this was supposed to happen, the practice continued through several pharaohs. King Jet, 236 sacrifices. King Den, numbers declining. By the second dynasty, the practice ended, deemed too costly, too brutal. But for those 318 people at King DJER's funeral, they died together, on the same day, for one man's afterlife. From 47 seconds of drowning to years of invisible poisoning. From one man's infected leg to 318 people buried alive. This is the zero awareness spectrum. This is how ancient Egypt killed its own. Level 2 to level 7, seconds to years, and every single one of them aware. If you want to see the zero awareness spectrum applied to another civilization, drop it in the comments. Subscribe so you don't miss the next one.